This is the story about Mito, who lives in a blue house, decades after she has gone through a number of strange experiences. This is a world where westerns are all the rage. Along with an increasing number of shoots, the demand for tumbleweeds has increased dramatically. You are a tumbleweed farmer with a boom. Successfully grow tumbleweeds and make a fortune. This is Tumbleweed, the seed that runs through the greenery.
Hey everybody, I'm Evan.
And I'm Missy.
And today we're going to be reviewing this game right here called, well, I think it's called Tangleweed, even though the intro there refers to tumbleweeds. And you are, in fact, tumbleweed farming. So, well, before we get into the review portion of this, let's go to Missy with a quick how to play.
Okay, this is essentially the setup for a 4-player game. You will start with the starting player being at 5 points and or dollars. And then next goes to 6, 7, 8. As I said, this is your points, but also your money. So you will be spending it here with your actions, 1, 2, 3, 4 points. As well as the seeds are separate from that. It is a separate action. You buy this separately from this. That's what randomly comes out as colored there on the tile. So you start by getting a random starting tile here. And I'll pull one. And I have gotten red. So I would put a red sprout on any of the X's and a red tumbleweed on any of the X's. Now, my starting power card, I have Mito here, and she does an extra growth phase. So at any point before my actions, I may grow this to a tumbleweed, or if it was a seed, I could grow it to a sprout. The other power cards are the construction worker, which gives you just 5 point dollars. The exorcist, which does a move action. I guess she can talk to the spirits to have them move the tumbleweeds for you. The real estate agent just straight up buys a new tile for you that you can place down. And the chemist does a free mating action. And that is when you have 2 sprouts, you can remove the 2 sprouts and put a seed down of the color they would make for the color wheel. And the color wheel is on this card here, and I will show that a little bit later. So, a turn is 2 actions. Let me grab my sprout again. A turn is 2 actions, and you can buy a tile, which I'm going to do, so I would move myself down 2 points. And let's see, do I want to buy another tile after it goes around, or do I want to buy a seed this time? So let's try buying a seed for 3, and I am down to 0 money dollars, and we're gonna put it there. So the next phase would be the win phase, and you roll the die. Now I have rolled a 3, and on this card it shows that 3 is down. So, my tumbleweed can't move anywhere, therefore I can't drop any seeds. Let's pretend I rolled a 2, which would be to the right, and it would move 1 and drop a seed, and move another and drop a seed. That would be the win phase. The next one would be the sales phase, which I would roll again, and we have a 3. So this is the top half of this card, and that is 3. So my red tumbleweed would only be worth 1 point. It's not worth selling really at this point in time, so I would not sell for points. The next part is the growth phase, in which you all sprouts become tumbleweeds, and all seeds become weeds. Now, we would start all over again. These would get moved over and a new one would come out. And then this is red, so that would go there. And we would start our turns again. And then that is the preparation phase. For the action phase, my first action that I would want to do is to take these 2 sprouts. And using our color wheel here, you can see that red and blue make purple. And I would take those and drop a purple seed for a mating action. Now, the real strategy is to get the black one. And according to the color chart here, you know, it goes by the middle. So to get black, you need a purple and a yellow, a orange or blue, or red and a green. Or you can do red, blue, and yellow all together to get a black seed. That is essentially how the game works in a couple turns to show you.
So there you go. There's a brief overview on how to play Tangleweed. So there's a number of points we're going to be hitting over the course of this review. Hopefully not make it too long. And we're going to go through them pretty quickly. The first thing we want to talk about is the theme and the mechanics. So go ahead.
The theme is you're growing tumbleweeds for Western movies.
Yeah, so it's a farming game at its heart, right? Like,
yeah.
It's a farming economic game.
Sure.
Sure, right. So, yeah, the theme doesn't really make any sense as far as that. But mechanically, it's a farming and economic game.
Right. They roll, you get seeds.
Right. So, yeah. So if you want to talk about mechanics, the wind mechanic, I think, is rather unique.
It's very interesting, yes.
Where you don't always know where your tumbleweeds are going to drop their seeds, right?
No.
So you can plan for it as much as you possibly can, but it's going to go wrong for probably someone sitting at the table.
Oh, yeah. Multiple times.
However, it is unique.
Yes.
And I think it's interesting.
Yes. I agree with you there. You know, it's luck based. It really is.
Yeah, but like I said, you can try to plan.
Yes. You want to get the tiles around your tumbleweeds so they have a space to roll.
Correct.
So you can get more seeds, so you
Right.
can get more tumbleweeds, so
Right.
you can, you know,
Right.
get more colors.
Right. But with the length of the rounds,
Right.
it's hard to completely plan, which I think is
True.
okay.
Yes.
Because then, like, you can't do it perfectly every time.
No. Definitely.
But like I said, unfortunately, some people may luck out more than others, as far as like the wind mechanic.
Yes.
But then there's the market, which also is random.
Right. I mean, depending on what color tumbleweed you're farming, you know, most of them have a variation, whereas if you can get the black one, it doesn't. It's always going to be 7.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that a little bit later. So, the next thing we want to talk about is the aesthetics and the components. How did you feel about these?
These are fun.
Yes.
The little felt balls.
The tumbleweeds are pretty amazing. Player pawns are pretty generic.
Yes.
Which is fine. The little D6 generic, or D4, sorry.
Yes, D4.
You know, the start player marker, super generic. I think the art, what art there is pretty good on the cards.
Yes.
It's cute.
It's just anime-ish characters.
Yeah, the card stock is kind of thin, but it doesn't matter because you're not really handling the cards. They're mostly just sitting in front of you.
Yeah. The
Go
double-sided
Yes.
chits are nice
I
because
think
you
these-
have the seeds on one side
Yes.
and the sprouts on the other, so you don't have to switch them out constantly.
Right.
You're just flipping them.
Yes, I think these chips for the seeds and the sprouts are very nice. These tiles, on the other hand. So there's an unfortunate thing about these tiles. They're functionally on this side very good. The other side, they're completely white.
Yeah.
So like, I understand for like cost-cutting reasons if you're an indie company not printing anything on this other side, but, you know, a stack of white tiles on the table doesn't necessarily look that great.
Right. You could have had a lot more variability if you were able to print more, I guess. But
well, like I said,
double side them.
okay, but I don't think that would work because then
True.
they need to be. I would like like the logo of the game or just like some piece of art instead of a
I
white
see.
tile. That's what I mean. But it's functionally great. The other thing, which I understand if it's a small company, is this paper score sheet. It's very thin, very flimsy. Score sheet plus like the little the market board all on one. It works. It's functional. It's not fancy.
No.
It doesn't really bother me.
They spent all their budget on these
On
tumbleweeds.
felt balls, yes. That's correct. Yeah. All right. So I think it's a positive as far as aesthetics and components overall.
Yes.
So then if you want to talk about replayability and variability, how do you feel about those things?
I mean, it's always going to be variable because of the luck.
Yes.
It's never going to be the same. The wind's never going to blow the same
Correct.
direction as it has in the past.
The random die roll is
Yes.
going to determine the wind.
In the market is the
Yes,
same. It's
right.
It's never going to be the same exact points that you got before. So
But there's not a ton of price variability in the market, especially with like the starter colors anyway.
Yes,
So
true.
it's pretty similar until you get to the higher tier tumbleweeds.
Yes, it's always going to be based on what decision you made.
Right, and you can always
towards the beginning.
Right, and you can always choose not to sell them to and hold out for a better price.
But they might not be rolling very
Correct.
far.
Right, and then you start running out of room.
Exactly.
I think there are some tiles that are better than others. Like it's much better to buy a 4 square than a 2 square, especially if you're trying to build an area for them to roll.
Right. However, if that's the only tile available and you're
Yes.
if you're in the corner of the board,
Yes.
it's better. No, something's better than nothing.
Correct. So like there's the variability there. As far as replayability, I think it kind of goes hand in hand because you get a random starting character card.
Right.
And you have to basically waste a turn to get another character card. However, they are powerful, so some
Yes.
work out better for you in situations that you may be in or not. Sometimes it might be worth it to lose that turn. Anything more you want to say about that?
Not that I can think of.
So then, what about length versus experience?
It always feels like it goes so fast. It really
Right,
does.
that's the thing. The box says 60 minutes on the side.
It can't be.
We played a 3-player game in just about 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Having played it before,
Yes.
and there's mostly just Japanese text on these, but once you know what they do, it's all pretty self-explanatory, especially like the round reference card. You don't really even need it. It goes by easily. Like it's
Yeah.
easy to remember. And then the market card also, it's very well laid out and language independent on this side. So
I'm not sure that it even took 60 minutes when we taught the kids how to play.
yeah, probably not.
It feels like it goes by so fast. It doesn't feel like you're, wasting any time at all.
And I think that's good. I don't because
Yes.
it does not outstay its welcome.
No.
It's in and it's out and it's done,
Mm-hmm.
and then the game's over. So then the question is the experience you get during that time worth the time that it was spent?
I think so. You have, you don't feel like you're wasting any time, but you also feel like I could use more rounds. I could use more turns.
Right, more than 2 actions on your turn.
I don't know about more than
No?
but more time. Like I just built this up. I want to see it continue to grow, but
that's
then
true.
the game ends.
That's true. But like having an extra action during a turn
Yes,
also
it could.
would.
It could help.
But I
yes,
think it's better
but-
to feel too short than to feel too long.
True.
Because I think if you get too much extra, then everyone is probably doing better and like accomplishing everything they want to accomplish.
True.
And I don't think that's always a good thing.
No.
So let's talk strategies.
Well, your best bet is to get black because black sells always for 7. However, it's not always easy to make. If you can pull it off towards the beginning, it can be very, very lucrative for you.
Do you think it was difficult to pull that off towards the beginning to set up the engine to get to it?
So when we played 4 players, Finn was able to do it and I was trying to do the same thing and I didn't pull it off as well
Okay.
as he did. And when we did the 3-player game, I was able to do it, and Grayson was trying to catch up to that. And it's not easy to do because you have to have the right mix of colors to make the black one, and it's not always favorable. You have to have the right power card. You have to have the right wind movement just to make it all happen.
However, you both were able to do that by the end of the game.
Yes.
You were able to create a farm full of the black ones that are worth the most.
Yes.
And which leads to another problem is that there aren't enough of them. Because if multiple players pull that off, there are not enough black ones.
Yeah, there's only 4?
5, 4 or 5?
4, I think.
Which is kind of crazy if multiple people are able to get to that one within the last couple of rounds.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I think there is a dominant strategy, which is get to those as soon as you can.
Yes.
Because I never did that. I just kind of went with the flow to see kind of like what I could end up with, try to get to the more expensive colors, and I lost every single time.
Yeah.
So it's almost like you have to do that, especially if someone else is also doing it.
Yes.
So
I mean, you can like try to get like purple or orange, but it's not, if you can't do it right away to keep selling and bringing those right, it's almost like you just can't at the beginning because you don't have the space, you don't have, so this is the way to go. This is the strategy. But yeah, it's not always going to pay off.
No,
especially if the wind is not in your favor.
Right, so it may feel a little unfair if someone is getting the wind in their favor and they also have that strategy going. And so I think it is what it is, right? The next question is, do you have any additional negatives about this game that we haven't already touched on?
This being the thing, because they are not, what do you say, limited. So even though we only have 4 or 5, you just have to use a different color and have to remember that is not that color.
So I do think that is a bit of a negative.
Yes. So that is the tough part. And then, you also have to do things in order, or you will forget on your board, like, was this a sprout that needed to become a tumbleweed, or did I just turn this into a sprout?
You do have to be careful, yes.
You have to do it in
I think the rules suggest that you do it in a specific order so that you don't forget, like go from...
I think you need to do tumbleweeds first.
Yeah, I think that's like going from the highest down to the lowest. Tumbleweed, sprouts, seeds. Do it in that order.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you will forget and you're like, is this supposed to be a tumbleweed or a sprout? I don't.
And the other thing that's easy to forget is to remember that you have to play the card before you take your turn.
Yes, that's true.
So if you've taken your turn, then you're like, oh, I wanted to play that card. Oops. Well, it's too late. You have to save that. So that, but again, that's, that could be a player issue, right? You just kind of have to, that's one thing you have to remember.
Right.
Because I think if you could play these cards after your turn, they're a little bit
too
even
powerful.
More powerful, than they already are.
Yes, no, that is absolutely true, because you have to do it before you start your either the first or second action.
Yep. So I think the negatives are pretty minimal.
Yes.
So which leads us to our next point: is it fun?
I think so. I thought it was a lot of fun.
I think this game is fun too.
Yes.
Again, it's quick. I think it might get a little frustrating if you are not getting the wind blowing where you want.
But it's like a fun frustrating, like, oh man, come on, oh, don't roll this, roll that.
Yeah. I was never too bothered, like, when all my stuff was stuck in a corner and you guys were getting, like, higher level,
I've had games like that, though, too, where it's like, oh, no, don't roll a 1, don't roll a 1, and then it's, of course, like, the one, I can only move my tumbleweed 1 space, or I can only move it 0 spaces, I get no seeds, and it's like, oh.
But I think with the game length being so short as it is, it's not, like... It doesn't feel super punishing.
No.
Like, it feels a little frustrating. It feels a little disappointing when you're not getting as many seeds out as other people.
But then it feels really good when you are able to do that.
Back to additional negatives. I think there's one slight flaw in the game. And that is there's an additional sales phase at the end of the game, but there's not an additional growth phase.
Yes.
So if you can't time it, basically what you have growing towards the end of the game, if it doesn't become a sprout and then into a into a tumbleweed, they're just never going to be worth anything.
No.
So I don't know how you fix that
No.
without having an additional growth phase, but then that might be too powerful then.
Yes.
So maybe it just forces you to plan ahead a little bit better to make sure you are preparing for the end of the game.
Yeah, that's true.
All right. So, well, before we give our final ratings, let's check in with some other opinions.
It was fun. I absolutely wrecked you all.
I mean, it's a fun game. I feel like it's definitely more competitive for 4-player, but I think it's better at 3.
All right, well, are you ready to wrap up this review?
Yeah.
Okay, so Board Game Geek uses a 1 through 10 rating scale, and I think that's what we're also going to do.
Okay.
As a preface, I usually rate my games high because I like playing games. I enjoy playing games, even if it's not a perfect game, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay.
My scale usually tends to go high. So, what would you give this on a 1 to 10 rating scale?
I was going to go with 7.
Okay. So I was kind of bouncing around between a 7 and a 7.5. And I think some of the elements bring it up to a 7.5 for me, like the interesting components, the interesting
Mechanic.
power cards. Yep. I forgot what I was going to say.
The win mechanic.
The win mechanic, right? Which is, I think, is unique, and it's an interesting game, I think, to show people, even if it's not a perfect game. So, I think I'm going to fall on a 7.5.
I wasn't thinking about halves, but yeah, I was going between 7 and 8.
Okay.
I was just going with whole numbers.
Okay.
So,
all right. So you're going to stick with the 7? Then?
I'll stick with the 7.
Okay.
I think
All right.
it's
fair enough.
I think it's really fun and interesting, but I do think it's a lot of luck. So.
I mean, okay, maybe. All right.
With the die rolls and
sure.
where your tumbleweed is placed, if it can make seeds and
Sure.
things like that.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us on this review of Tangleweed. What is the subtitle on this? Do you remember? The seeds
Seed into greeneries.
that flow through the greenery.
Okay.
Something like that. All right. Well, hey, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next one, everybody. Bye.
Bye.